Good morning and welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran, and of course I want to welcome everyone to the show. And Rob, good morning. Of course, my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Rob, good morning. How are you?
Doing great, Todd. It's another Saturday and another day to talk about podcasting and what's happening this time around the world with podcasting. Usually we just talk about what's going on in the U.S., so it's good to kind of branch out and go a little global today.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, I kind of had to laugh because when the alarm clock rang at 4:30 this morning, I'm thinking, oh, you know, I was really kind of wanted an extra couple of hours, but our guest today has been out of bed a long time. It's actually 5 o'clock in the evening in the UK. Good morning, Mike Russell. How are you?
Good morning, Todd. Good morning, Rob. It's great to see we're looking very corporate today with the Raw Voice logo there and New Media Europe.
Yes,
it's great to be here.
Well, and you're wearing a T-shirt that says New Media on it, so I guess we're all New Media today, all the way.
Yeah.
And I think what it was for me was just grab the first shirt out of the...
Yeah, exactly. It's just the next one in the stack,
right? Yeah, in the cycle. So
I have got the Hawaiian shirt on, though, to go with the kind of Hawaiian theme that you've got there, Todd. So.
Yeah, you know what? I was wearing some Hawaiian shirts for a while doing my regular show, and people said... And I basically went, you know, Hawaiian... Well... We don't need to get into a history lesson, but there's cheap Hawaiian shirts that you can get for $14.95 off the rack, and there's expensive, like Tommy Bahama Hawaiian shirts that are $150. Yeah. So when I was,
there's the label for you.
Yeah, so $14.95 or something like that. So when I bought a bunch of shirts for my show, of course, what did I dig? I picked 10 of the cheapest. $14.95 god awful Hawaiian shirts, and after about 2 weeks, people said, "Please stop."
I love them. My wife kind of tames me down a little bit, but I still get to wear them, you know, from time to time.
So I'll break them out once in a while and give people a smorgasbord on their eyeballs. But anyway, I digress. Hey, just as an audience reminder, no show next Saturday, and that's my fault. I'm getting on a jet airplane Tuesday evening. And
yeah, Todd, and I even had a guest all booked already for next Saturday.
I know, and but I have to go hang out with Danica Patrick. So,
God, suffer that you may, I'm sure.
Yes, I'm sorry. I had to go out, and I'm going to be a guest of GoDaddy at the Michigan. Actually, it's the Gatorade 400 or something like that. It's at Michigan International Speedway, and I will be there with VIP access. And you know, you guys have both done a lot of media stuff over the years. You would not believe the paperwork, what I have had to fill out with NASCAR to get to get my camera.
Oh, that's right.
They control everything. And I had to lay out, and this is maybe of interest to the audience, and we'll obviously get into the topic at hand, but they control everything, and there's this big long disclaimer: what you can do, what you can't do, if you can't ask for autograph. This litany of things, and it's not overburdensome. But in the paperwork, what is how many's in your crew? What's your camera shot? What's your story? I mean, they make it lay out where you're going to shoot, how you're going to shoot, rules on being in the pits, the whole 9 yards, and we're going to be doing and make it even more difficult. We're actually going to do the interview at her motor coach, and that is like the super restricted access, and you have to have what's called a hard card to get in, and have to be escorted, and obviously they don't want fans or media running around the living area of the drivers. So anyway, that all got approved. I actually got the email this morning, said we're good. But kind of interesting, you know, going to trade shows and that type of stuff. There's, you know, you fill out one piece of paper and they prove you or disapprove you, and you're done. And no. And I was quite surprised, all for a 10-minute interview. So, and very strict start time, very strict stop time, and then trying to plan that strategy of doing the interview will be good. It'd be good to share that later on after I come back. But anyway, that's why we're having no show next Saturday.
Yeah, I think a lot of the big big kind of leagues, or like the NFL and Major League Baseball, they have very similar kind of branding and kind of rights controls over every aspect. Like the Olympics is the same way, right?
Right.
They lock everything down, so they get the benefits of all that media. So I mean, there's a lot of money at stake for those companies, though it seems a little onerous, doesn't it?
Well,
have so much control.
If you think about it, Fox and those other groups have paid hundreds of millions of dollars to own the rights to do that coverage.
Yeah.
And I can understand exactly why those companies have, they don't want some person willy-nilly in there doing content. And the only reason I got access is because I'm going to be a guest of the sponsor.
Yeah.
And and even the sponsor, this is, and as you would kind of expect, there's this dividing line. There's the team, and then there's a sponsor. So the sponsor just doesn't get full access. The sponsor has to still go through the team and work the schedule of the team and abide by. It's not like they can just run in there willy-nilly. So I think it's kind of an interesting, from that perspective, for me, it's kind of interesting to see, because I've been on some of the email dialogue back and forth, not specifically with the team, but with the GoDaddy folks, and I can see the dynamics. So it's been interesting to watch that. Now, I think they're given a lot of consideration, obviously. But it will be fun. It'll be interesting to come back and talk to you about the whole experience of getting in and getting carded, and all the all the details. And then so basically after that interview, no more B-roll, no B-roll whatsoever. And I'm thinking I may be even more restricted because I've been coming in as a journalist. I may not be able to even take some pictures because it could be considered B-roll, whereas a fan probably wouldn't have that restriction. So,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. So fans
and Ford has been pretty aggressive about bringing out podcasters and bloggers and out to all of their events for years now. I mean, this isn't the first time you've gone out for a Ford event.
No, this is a GoDaddy event. This is not a Ford event.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. This is
it's totally a GoDaddy event.
Right,
okay.
right. Totally a GoDaddy event. So,
gotcha. Yeah, for some reason I had Ford in my mind because Ford does the same thing, right?
Yeah, but if the Ford events are designed for the press, I mean, it's all, take all the pictures you want.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm sorry we've kind of, I wanted to delve down that topic a little bit, but should be a lot of fun.
Just one tip for you, Todd. Make sure you have an SD card, a backup, and batteries as well. Yeah. Because back in my days as a radio producer, I got the opportunity to meet the Prime Minister of the UK, and we didn't have an SD card, so no photos.
Yeah.
Well,
oh no, yeah.
That that would just suck so bad, wouldn't it?
We got the audio, but no proof.
So that's one of those situations where you just like, I got the video, I'm good. You don't even tell them you didn't get the video. You're just like, oh, everything's great. You run the camera and the thing's not even on. Is this thing? How come the screen? Oh, I have it turned off to save the battery.
Just get a huge SD card.
I've been in those situations where a camera went dead, and I just always told the cameraman, if the camera dies, just keep on rolling, keep going. We're not going to stop. Because you don't want to embarrass yourself. You just, and then later on you can say, well, that interview didn't come out the way I wanted, and we didn't decide not to run it. So anyway, what we're here to talk about today mostly is New Media Europe. So, you guys, how's the event shaping up? I guess, and first of all, when's the event? Tell the audience a little bit about it, and so we can, get everyone dialed in on what's happening with this event.
Well, cool. Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's really exciting. So we are under 100 days. In fact, I think it's just over 97 days to go now until New Media Europe, and it's happening in a city called Manchester in the UK, which I'm sure your international audience will be aware of. Manchester United and all of the famous stuff that comes out of Manchester up in the north of England. So we got some great speakers, as you can see. I can see you're scrolling through the screen there. Keynotes include Chris Ducker, Cliff Ravenscraft, Natalie Sisson. So kind kind of international mix of speakers. And I've just got a feeling, Todd, that you're going to ask me about why there are so many Americans at New Media Europe. But yeah, it's essentially a conference for bloggers, for podcasters, for YouTubers, online video creators, social media fans, and users and marketers. And we're all going to get into the center of the UK and have this amazing event. So looking forward to it.
Well, I'm excited to, when you guys announced this, it's a pretty, as the podcast movement folks have found out, or even, when Rick from NMS does his shows, it's a big job to put on a show. Did you fully understand or kind of like understand, oh man, we the work you're going to have to do?
You make it sound, Todd, like we have zero experience, which is true. Yeah, that's right. No, you're absolutely right. And as you guys know, you've been in the event space and organized things, and you know how much work it is. We happened to organize a UK Podcasters Conference last year. So we had about 100 podcasters turn up in Birmingham in the UK. And that was brilliant because we had people not only from the UK, but from Ireland and other parts of Europe coming in, especially for that. So it was after that we thought, there are a lot of people in Europe that are sort of around that want to do something that maybe, the thing we heard again and again and again, and, I love New Media Expo. I've been there. That was kind of the genesis for the idea of New Media Europe. And people were saying, well, I love all that, and I love that there's loads going on in the US, but there's a lot of travel involved. So it would be great to have something happening in Europe. So we did the UK Podcasters Conference and got a lot of feedback like that. So that's kind of what's taken us to the stage we are now. And you're absolutely right. There is a lot of planning involved. There are more speakers to be announced. There's a UK Podcasters Awards to be organized and set up. And again, Todd, I'm looking towards you because you're a big podcast awards man. And so there's a lot of stuff. There's evening parties, there's breakout events, there's hopefully communities that are going to have meetups. That's one of the things that I loved about New Media Expo so much, is that so many of the communities there all have their own meetups. I think that's, outside of the sessions, that's one of the best things, that you can go to all these different parties and meetups. I think that's really where the networking and the magic happens. And so it's trying to create that culture and that community. There's just, it's a year-round job, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
it's no small job pulling all that stuff together and getting it done ahead of time and planning and stuff like that. So why don't you tell us a little bit more, from a logistical and what the, what the plan is for the event? Are you guys, so what kind of venue is it in, and what kind of a, setup? Like sessions and things like that. Are you doing panels? What's kind of the nuts and bolts of the event?
So, Rob, we've got essentially 2 tracks that run side by side, and we will have keynotes. So, as you can see on the front page of the website at newmediaeurope.com, you can see all of our 4 keynotes will be presenting to open, to close, and also to open and close because there are 2 days. So there are 2 days, opening, closing. And we're going to have all kinds of sessions. So we're going to have blogging sessions, podcasting sessions, YouTube sessions. We are going to have workshops. We're also considering, because it's Europe, international language panels. Not quite sure how that will work. We might need to work it out how they do it in the UN or something like that. But maybe that's for a few years down the line. But there'll be those kind of things. There'll also be parties. And it's going to be at a hotel called the Midland Hotel in Manchester, which is, I think it cost about £1 million to build it back in the day. This was years and years ago. And now this would cost hundreds of millions of pounds, hundreds of millions of dollars to build. And if you really want to know about the Midland Hotel, it's one of the most historical hotels in Manchester in the UK. There is actually a brand new TV series on Channel 5 in the UK. I'm hoping it's not geo-locked so you guys can access it around the world, where they go behind the scenes of how this hotel runs. But to give you an idea, guests like David Beckham have stayed in this hotel. There's been, the Beatles back in the day went there. I think Paul McCartney was turned away from the restaurant because he wasn't dressed very well. So, but don't worry, they will let new media types in there. I know what we're like. So, Well, I'm hoping they will. Otherwise, we'll have to do it outside, and the British weather can be, a little bit dodgy. So,
If you bring a video camera in or a microphone, they'll tend to let you in more than they will, just Paul McCartney. Is that what you're saying? So, yeah.
well, yeah, totally. And in the new media age, because you could record something and you could upload
That's
it
right.
to YouTube.
Exactly. You can give them some advertising. Free.
But it's seriously, it's a great hotel, and I mean they're very active on social media, and we've taken this into account with all of our venues and the things we're working out. That's something we've made sure of, because in the lead up to the event, we're also holding meetups and community events all across the UK. We're thinking about branching into Europe. We did do one in Germany, which was good fun. But we know our home patch, the UK, and we're using tools such as Foursquare. Not so much TripAdvisor, because it's gamed a little bit now, I think, a little bit too much. But Foursquare we find really good for finding good venues in certain areas. So yeah, and we like to see that they're on Twitter and they're using Twitter, because obviously we know our crowd are going to be tweeting, and we don't want someone who's got a Twitter account that last tweeted in 2011. Hello world, this is, the Midland Hotel. So those guys are very active. And we want to have that kind of relationship. We want a venue that gets that kind of thing.
Sure.
Well, one thing too is if they have bad service, they will definitely hear about it.
You know that, Todd.
definitely
It'll be
holds them
uploaded
accountable,
to
doesn't it?
YouTube, and so yeah, I don't think they quite know what they've let themselves in for, and that's the funny thing, as I'm sure you guys are aware. We're right in the heart of new media, and I think sometimes we forget that. So we think, oh, everyone's on Twitter,
Right.
but not everyone's on Twitter. I talk to friends here where I live on the Isle of Wight. I say, so what's your Twitter handle? They say, Twitter? What's that? I'm not on that. So we're still at the very genesis of new media. But yeah, absolutely. I think it does surprise venues when one thing we do with our meetups is we always have, when people check out and they register to come, we say, please tweet that you're coming. And I think it kind of blows venues away when they get sort of 40 or 50 tweets saying, I'm turning up at this meetup, So
Yeah.
And I'm looking
because
at
I think Twitter has 350 million, I think, accounts, and how many billions of people are in the world? So I'd say it's a pretty small subset of what, and Facebook's over 1 billion users now. So, but it's interesting. Yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah, I think we all assume that everybody has Twitter accounts. That's just not the case.
yeah.
when I was
But
looking,
as you say, yeah, most people are on Facebook, so
Yep.
that's a good place to be.
I was looking at your meetup page, and you definitely can tell it looks like everyone's maybe had a pint or two. Everyone's nice and smiling. And
Oh, it, Todd. You should have been there. It was we were in the bar till 4 a.m.
oh my God.
You guys are serious.
I have to say that is a little bit of a cultural difference, I think, between the UK and the
4
US.
in the morning?
And actually, I think the last guy to go to sleep was a Scottish guy called Kevin, and he's a great laugh. He's a podcaster. This guy is amazing. He travels around Scotland in a caravan. His podcast is called Bonnie Tours. I encourage you to look it up. And he literally goes from place to place and just podcasts about Scotland. And I think he was one of the last guys standing. So good on
So,
him.
did you have events the next day as well, or was the event
Oh, no.
over? Okay, I was going to say, oh my God.
Well, that's one of the things I've seen, because we've been attending a few conferences recently, and one of the things I've noticed is if they have a really good party on the Saturday night,
Yeah.
the kind of Sunday morning keynotes are
Right.
have a very low attendance. So-
Yeah. Oh, you don't want to be the first keynote of the day or first session of the day on a Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The day after the
Right.
opening of the event, right?
Yep. Because the older folks will typically be out, but the younger crowd maybe rolling about noon. Yeah. But, I think one thing, too, is, I've traveled all over the world, and I understand the cultural differences on, in Spain, if you go out before 10 o'clock at night, it's like, what's wrong with you? Why are you going out, And,
Yep.
and here, at 10 o'clock, they're already, and it's like 3 hours from bar close already. It's, in some states, 1 o'clock. Here in Hawaii, stuff's open to 4 in the morning, but,
Yeah, Todd, you're right. People eat really late in Spain.
Yeah.
I know. I was really surprised when I was back in Barcelona, and everybody's like eating at 11 o'clock at night. So,
And I don't know about the UK. If they eat that late. Do you guys eat that late as well? I don't think so. Do you?
No, we're pretty tame in the UK. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it was about a decade or so ago they introduced the 24-hour drinking law here, which is kind of, it always existed anyway, but
Right.
now it's official. And I don't think many bars stay open that late. But yeah, I think we tend to eat sort of last thing in the afternoon, and then I guess most clubs are open till 1 or 2 in the morning. But I'm a family man now, so it's been a long time since I've done that kind of thing.
It's like you have to get up and go to work the next day, or and as you get older, it takes you 3 days to recover. When you're in your 20s, you just like wake up like next day, all right, let's go, and you're like, oh, I'm not gonna go out tonight. By about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're like, where are we going tonight? But well, anyway, it's not about partying; it's about coming and having good information. So, how's your numbers looking so far? How's your registration?
It's looking really good. Yeah, we've broken what we had last year. So essentially, we had just under 100 podcasters in Birmingham last year, and now we've got, I think it's around 100. You see, Isabella deals with the numbers and the figures and the finance, because I know you're probably going to ask me about ticket prices and stuff like that. So I've actually done my calculations on the screen before, because I'm a creative, so I know nothing about how numbers work. But we're looking at around we're about half capacity because we're shooting for 200.
Good.
Be lovely to get 250. I think the venue can hold maybe up to 300, 325. So we've got a nice bit of leeway there.
So as they say, you do have a bunch of Yanks coming in to talk. So what's the story with that?
Yeah, you're taking over because you're epic. It's like all the great new media info does come from America, and I mean, I'm still in awe of it. I mean, as much as we have this event going now in Europe, and it's going to be great. I still love America, and I can't wait until I get the chance to go out there. So yes, I mean we've had a lot of really good quality people from the US, and that's been helped in no small part. Actually, I was asked this on a podcast I was on recently. How do you get so many good quality speakers? How do you do that? And I would say it was in no small part thanks to our initial announcements, Chris Ducker and Cliff Ravenscraft. I mean, these are serious players in the space, and I think when others saw those names as headliners, keynotes, it was easier to sort of open doors and make contact with some of the other epic folk there in America. So I mean, yeah, just looking at the lineup, we've got Jonathan Tilley is an American, but he now lives in Germany, so we count him as a European. We've got obviously Andrew Val, Amy Schmittauer as well, Jeremy Bay, Trajan King, Phil Pallen, who is a Canadian, but he's in Los Angeles now. So yeah, loads. And I just think that you guys are always ahead on everything. I remember when I was a kid, and you'd get the movies first, you'd get the video games first. And I was so jealous. And obviously when I was a kid, I couldn't just go over there and watch the movies. So now with new media, it all kind of it happens instantly, doesn't it? So
it does.
Well, I guess it kind of leads the conversation into asking, what's the vibe and what's happening around podcasting in Europe, and is there a similar resurgence to what we're seeing in the U.S., or is it lagging, or where does new media and podcasting stand in Europe?
It's great. I mean, it's fantastic, and I think the interesting thing about it is there has just been so much recently from every corner about how podcasting is growing, and it's going through a revival. And marketers and business people in the UK in particular are not silly when they see information like that. They're like, podcasting, what's that? So, when we're doing our meetups, this is one of the things we're trying to do with our meetups that obviously are a funnel into New Media Europe. Mm-hmm. We're trying to make contact with the wider business community and those marketers who are maybe, there are so many fantastic marketers just in every corner of the UK and every corner of the world doing great things, but maybe they haven't really discovered podcasting. So, and as you can tell, that's the thing that I'm most passionate about. So we kind of try and get them into that world. I mean, there are even companies here on the Isle of Wight. I mean, we're actually doing an Isle of Wight podcasting meetup, and it's so far it's our most popular meetup this year. So, which I'm absolutely stunned by because people have to take a 1-hour ferry to come here. But yeah, there are a lot of good people on the island who are interested in that. but just in general, I think people are really excited about it, and particularly in the UK. I mean, we have a Facebook group called UK Podcasters that is growing steadily week by week. I can see podcasters in Europe as well. I mean, if you go to Sweden, we've got a speaker called John Buskell. He's a fantastic guy, hosts the Online Marketing and Communications podcast. Michał Szafranski, who's from Poland. I'm not going to attempt to say his podcast name because it's in Polish. My wife will slap me on the wrist for this because she is Polish, but it's essentially called How to Make Money, and very, very similar to Michael Hyatt and Pat Flynn in that sense, but in Polish. I actually got to meet Michał recently, and his figures, just in the he gave me a glance at his download figures, just for the Polish language, just for in Poland, are just amazing, like mind-blowing. And I'm like, wow, there are super niches in every single country in Europe. Right. And he was telling me that literally in Poland there is pretty much nothing else going on in iTunes. So at the moment, and that's the key thing, isn't it? At the moment he can sit there and have a very nice sort of position on iTunes.
Yeah, I've always heard that that kind of local language podcasts always do well in the country that they're produced, because there's not a lot of content coming out of any individual country, in Europe. But a lot of people across Europe listen to English podcasts, but there's not a lot of people listening to the native language shows outside of those countries. Is that what your observation is too, or kind of, from a content provider perspective? I mean, is it kind of a culture thing of why podcasting maybe is not as widely adopted in Europe? Or, I mean, is it kind of how media is perceived? Is that, I know it's a multi-part kind of question I'm throwing out at you. I'm just trying to get a flavor for where we are with podcasting in Europe. I know I've been really, really interested in it for years myself, of kind of getting up to date with what's happening over there, because there's just so much potential over there.
It is interesting. I definitely agree. And I mean, the first part of your question where you said, are people listening mainly to English language podcasts? In my experience, they are. I mean, when I talk to people, when we travel around Europe, and I talk to people at different conferences and events and meetups, you hear a lot of the same names in the new media, internet marketing world. You hear Michael Hyatt, you hear Pat Flynn a lot, you hear Cliff Ravenscraft. All of the, those kind of podcasts are being consumed in Europe. As you mentioned, there are native language podcasts, and Michał is doing great things in Poland. John Buskell in Sweden, he podcasts in Swedish. He podcasts in English, even though he can speak Swedish and French as well. So, I mean, that's quite interesting. Germany, I understand, has a lot of good native language podcasts. But the interesting thing about how you bring it all together, I mean, I have real hope that, New Media Europe, it's technically in its first year, because we had the kind of, if you like, dry run the UK Podcasters Conference. But as you alluded to earlier, this is the very start for us, and it's a brand new conference. So I guess we're kind of where podcast movement were last year, this year, if you like, because we're trying something new and seeing where it goes. But I don't know if you guys, the biggest kind of comparison I can draw at the moment, have you guys ever heard of the Eurovision Song Contest in America?
I have. Maybe from...
Have you watched it?
No.
Why is it that no one in the US has ever watched the Eurovision Song Contest? It's huge in Europe. We have like, I don't know, the whole population of Europe pretty much watches it. So it's like, wow. I don't know, 70, 80 million maybe more, I don't know.
Huh.
But
wow.
It's, I mean, the great thing about that contest is that they have about 20-something countries performing songs throughout the evening, and then they have 40-something countries voting on all the songs at the end of the night. And there are all kinds of different languages going on there, but the main languages are English and French, so you kind of have that mix there. And obviously then the local TV stations, I think, will dub, or they'll have a narrator over the top, watching the show live and commentating on it. But yeah, maybe I think there's hope there, because we want to get people from all corners of Europe and all different languages into this conference. And I mean, we've sat down and we've drawn out plans and written things down and thought about where we'd like this to go. So yeah, we've got really big ideas. I mean, I'm going to kind of stop there because I'm guessing you're going to kind of try and draw me out as much as you can.
Hey, I wanted to also mention. I mean, there's some pretty big podcast activities going on in the UK. You know, with the BBC. Is there any participation that you see from that organization in this event? Are they getting involved, or I mean, at least attend? Is there any
We'd love
sense?
to. We'd love to. That's a great lead. I need to write that one down. I should have written that one down at the end of last year.
I know. Yeah,
No,
I can't imagine you haven't thought about it before. I'm sure, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm just curious. Those guys are so prolific with their podcasting. It just seems like a perfect fit with you guys.
You know, and
They
it's
are.
it's not only the BBC. There's
There's others too. Yeah.
and actually I've got two clients I can't even talk about that are because we got an NDA that are big podcasters there that are that I think a lot of people don't even know about. Universities are involved. There is a lot of activity going on.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when it comes to the BBC, I think it would be fantastic to see those guys involved. And in fact, they have been in our marketing strategy a little bit, so we are trying to get up on their radar. The same with in the UK in particular, we have the BBC and we have commercial radio, and obviously that's my background, so I kind of know a lot about how that works. And I think in radio in particular, I mean, we're seeing great things happen in the US now where New Media Expo are partnering up with NAB, so you've got the podcasters talking to the radio folk, and I find that quite interesting. But I think radio is still an interesting area at the moment, and the BBC actually I think are doing a really good thing because most of their podcasts are repeats of their radio shows and not primarily podcast content. Although I actually went to the BBC last year and I was on a podcast called College of Production, and that is solely a podcast. And I got to chat to the producer, and he said, yeah, this is solely a podcast. You know, it's doing great for us. The BBC are invested in doing podcasting as a medium, not just repeats of radio shows. So there is real hope there from such a huge organization as the BBC that I have a huge amount of respect for. And, yeah, we'd love to see them involved, essentially.
Hey, Mike, there's a question in the chat room. Daniel J. Lewis asked random question to Mike. Why did he switch to the Heil?
I've been listening to too much Leo Laporte and Cliff Ravenscraft.
Oh, interesting.
No, seriously. I'm just a tech gadget freak. I mean, like you guys, I can see you are, Todd, with all your kit going on behind there. So yeah, I'm it's an interesting one, but I constantly sort of worry my wife with the gadgets I want to buy. But I just thought, the Heil is a good solid microphone. I heard you had Bob Heil on the New Media Show, didn't you? Recently?
We did.
I enjoyed listening to that episode. He's a very knowledgeable character, and he clearly loves his microphones.
Yes,
I love the
he
fact
does.
you can just talk down the barrel of it. It's fab. But I do have over here for voiceovers, I have the old condenser microphone. But that's an Audio-Technica AT4033. And actually, I used to use this one for podcasting, and it's got a really, really good sound. But I just thought, I don't know. I think in all honesty, I think I just wanted to be more of a podcaster, not a radio guy. So I thought I'll get the Heil then.
I used to use
Is that an awful answer?
No.
Yeah, I used to use a cardio condenser for my old show that I used to do years and years ago, but I had to pad my room in order to use it, though. It was just so sensitive, right? Yeah, I mean, this mic's a dynamic mic. It's the Shure SM7B. It's a pretty popular mic now in podcasting. You look at a lot of the bigger networks, they're using this mic. The bigger podcasts. Networks Heil is certainly a good mic. I've never had an interest in having one. I'm not quite sure what the advantage is over. I just chose this mic. I don't know really why. It just it looked like a good one to me.
Well,
It works for you.
There was a good story that was an interview done with NPR's head of. I guess he was the audio guy, and they use a real inexpensive mic Ha ha ha. They use a $2,600, or actually $3,600 Newman mic that is in their production stuff. I'll be honest with you. I think mics are have to be, I guess for a better word, matched. I've got a PR40. I've got an RE20. I've got a couple of other mics as well. And to be honest with you, I don't like the sound of me in that mic.
Yeah.
But
You've got a good sound on your current mic, Todd. Are you running that? Is that going through a preamp or anything like that?
oh yeah, and that's part of the secret sauce here. Let's see if I can actually. I don't know if the video will. Let's see which camera.
Yeah, I'm not doing any preamps on my end here. I just have a Mackie mixer that I have this plugged into.
Oh, wow.
So this is raw microphone.
If you look right there,
Yeah.
there's a Solo 610 there, and
cool.
for those that, well, just Google Solo 610, and it is a beautiful preamplifier, but it comes at a price.
Yeah.
A very, very big price. But my goal and my whole ever since I started podcasting, my goal was to hit record, hit stop, encode, and be done. I do a couple additional steps now when I finish, but I think my total processing time on my audio is about 10 minutes. I run it through a couple of processes and put it out. I think and I really actually worked a lot on the audio this year with the help of a guy by the name of Paul Vigiani. He's kind of my audio guru, and he's well known in the space.
So Todd, why don't you explain, what the benefits are of using some audio processing? I think there's quite a few people in the podcasting space that probably don't use audio processing, kind of like me.
Yeah,
what's the advantage of it?
And just it's about the pipeline. The pipeline of sound. Number one, this is a very, very expensive mic. It's not an inexpensive mic in itself. So from the input to the preamplifier, which has it's a tube amplifier, very low noise. It's got great gain, and it has it's just in the sound that comes through it is different. And then I feed that into a Mackie mixer. The Mackie mixer, I don't have to crank the preamps. I run the preamps at Unity, right where the manufacturer really kind of wants them set at. I get the actual maximum benefit of the Maxi mixer and not adding any noise floor to the show. And then I run the audio. There's just a couple of boxes. There's an EQ, and then there's because I have in the studio here where the windows are open even now. I have a compressor gate that's really not processing, but that basically allows me to stop talking and you not get feedback through the mic at all. And then I use something called a big bottom, and that's from a Phonic, and it just adds a little bit of processing. And I set no EQ settings on the mixer at all, and then it goes directly to the recording platform, which I use Adobe Audition. I think that with that set up for me, it's allowed me to not have. I walk in here, turn things on, I go. And then I'm done. I do a couple of quick things with the audio, and then it's out the door. So for me, it's a time saver. I don't have to worry about getting rid of hiss. I don't have to worry. It's just it's what I've strived to do from the beginning. Plus, when I first started, there was no USB mics. There was really not the selection of stuff that's available today. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan of the USB mics. I know a lot of people use them. Not saying anything's wrong with them, but as a podcaster is trying to improve their kit over time, first thing you need to start is with the mic is the key.
I would also add that it helps you to compete with the radio folk out there, because you guys with your mic setups have a professional sound. You sound really good. And, there is not one radio studio in the world, I think, that doesn't have, the kind of chain you were talking about, a preamp for the mic, a compressor, some form of EQ and post-production. So, I mean, if you're sounding good right out the bat, just by having your setup good, and like you say, Todd, without having to pretty much do any editing afterwards, it just sounds great. Then, when you're up against, is it NPR in the US or the BBC in the UK, at least you stand a fighting chance as a podcaster of, not being, what's this kind of strange thing that's recorded on, very low quality microphone. So.
Daniel says in the chat that he says, I no longer like the sound of the Heil PR40. I think I don't have the right voice. And that was with me. I don't have the right voice for that mic. I just don't. And same with the RE20. And the RE20, here's the thing too. I see a lot of podcasters, and don't get me wrong, the PR40 is a great mic. I've got one up here in the RE20s. But most podcasters that own those mics don't have the rest of the chain to go along with them to support using the mic. They're running into substandard it's a substandard mixers. They have to crank the gain way up, and that induces hiss from the preamp. So I think it's much better, and and some people can't get away with using a condenser. It picks up everything. It's pretty isolated on my table, and I got a good arm here. I got a Heil arm, obviously, but if I mess with something, that definitely goes through, where on a dynamic it doesn't. So you have to treat the mic a little differently from that perspective. And the biggest problem that I have in this studio, believe it or not, is this monitor in front of me, because I get bounce. I get bounce off the monitor back into the mic. So typically I will try to set a little offset on the mic so that I don't go straight in and straight back. It makes a difference. It really does. People say, oh, I don't hear any difference. But when you get excited and start talking loud, it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard you talking with Bob Heil about the bounce off your monitor, and that's the problem if you have two mics. If you're co-hosting with someone, you can get that kind of reflection.
Yeah, you sure can.
So Todd, your mic there is a cardio condenser? Is that what
that is? Condenser, yeah.
It is, okay.
And I just like the...
Both of our mics are dynamics.
Right.
I mean, the Heil is a dynamic.
And for me, and just listening, when I'm sitting here in the studio and I'm listening to the condenser and I plug in a dynamic, it's a totally different sound to me. Now, does it translate on the recorder? I don't know. I don't have the best chops to begin with to be a podcaster. Let's be, frank. Some people have great radio voices. I enhance my voice through the EQ. I give it a little more bass. I add a little more. That's why I use the Aphonic big bottom. I add some things. I tweak a little bit what I feel my voice is missing. Now, eyes in the beholder, right? We all hate to listen to ourselves. It's weird, but how many of you can say you like listening to yourself?
Why don't you use one of the Adobe Audition presets and do some crazy mixing with your voice?
But it's an analog. I have an analog food chain. I don't do digital. So if I was to build the studio all over again, I'd probably do digital. But not at this point. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, you built that studio back. I had a big studio set up. Myself with a huge 12-channel mixer and Skype inputs and 3 cardio condenser microphones, and I thought that the sound of our show was really, really good. I mean, I thought I was really, really happy with it for many years. So I mean, I agree with you. I think I didn't have a lot of EQ and all that kind of stuff. Even in my own studio, I just didn't have it. I had patch bays and Telos and all this kind of stuff to take phone calls, so I could take phone calls and Skype calls in on my show. But yeah, I mean, Todd, you've really gone. I mean, I think for most podcasters, they don't go to that level.
Right.
Because it's too expensive.
It's too expensive. It is.
Yeah.
But it's like I didn't buy this mic, the first mic. I had an MXL90 for the first. That was $99 mic or something like that. Had a Behringer mixer to begin with, and then in the processing, it was driving me nuts. The shh,
Yeah, well,
and
Behringers are kind of noisy preamps.
well, they're better. When 10 years ago, it was, oh my God, you could buy a
Yeah.
6-channel Behringer mixer for a 6-pack. They've gotten better, a lot better over the years. But I continue to say, friends don't let friends buy Behringer.
Yeah.
But I'm a big, and some people don't like Mackie. Some people like, I just say if you can afford to buy one piece a year, if you last that long, start with a good mic and a good mixer, and then you can add to it over time. But most people don't want. Most people, first of all, most folks don't have the room in their houses either to set up something like this.
Yeah, I mean, if you get like a 6 or 8 channel Mackie mixer, I've got the 802 VL Z3. It doesn't. It's like maybe a less or about a foot square.
Yeah,
So
and actually,
it doesn't take up that much
I've
room.
actually got one of those right down here, and it's used to patch in some other stuff I use. So, yep, same exact. I've got an extra.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, there's 3 mixers in this studio, and for a variety of reasons. Actually, I got to come up with and the reason I used the other one feeding the TriCaster was a different reason. But at some point, I'm going to remove that from the chain. There's no need for all that in here, but I just had extra. You have what you use.
Yeah.
So going back, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm really happy with the Mackie, and I've had some other ones too that were kind of noisy. I couldn't get the noise out of them, so it's worked out really, really well. Mike, let's talk a little bit about your music radio creative company that you have too. What's happening with that, and is that keeping you busy creating custom audio pieces for podcasters?
Yeah, that's amazing. Just for anyone that doesn't know, that's our other company. That's our other thing we do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, the kind of stuff we're doing with Music Radio Creative is introducing new stuff to do with the podcast and the online marketing of it. So just recently we started a second season of the podcast. We've got a host called Kyron Mountain, and he's interviewing some fantastic people on there. So that's working out really well for us. But we're also trying other things, like, for instance, our production team. We've got quite a nice staple of producers who actually produce the audio. We've just started something now where we're promoting their work every month and asking our user base to kind of vote on Producer of the Month and bits like that. So, yeah, it's keeping us busy. It's great fun. So, yeah.
So you're always making those cool kind of liners and exits and lead-ins, and it's always, I can always tell when it's your creation. Definitely.
One thing that we didn't ask on New Media Europe is the cost, and
yeah, we didn't. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what's it going to cost folks to come.
Yeah. So are you guys coming, Todd and Rob? Are you coming over to the UK?
I would love to.
Yeah, I'd love to too, but I don't think it's in the schedule this year.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of planning, isn't there, with I guess travel to Europe. But I mean, it's a great deal because I can tell you in pounds the full ticket price is $347 Great British pounds. That translates to $530 US. But then you guys don't pay our value added tax, which means you get automatically 20% off. That makes it $441.
Your VAT's 20%?
Yeah. I believe, yeah. And if you use the coupon code NMS, which is your exclusive coupon code, then you get a further 20% off. So, I mean, it's almost like, if we knock off a few more 20%, that's hardly anything.
Yeah,
there you go.
As compared to the airline ticket, it's nothing.
yeah, you just need to sort the airline travel. So depends who you go with. Did Ryanair or Norwegian say they were doing really cheap budget flights from New York, JFK to London?
My challenge is I'm already 3 hours just from the West Coast. For me coming to Europe, oh man, that's painful. It's 10 hours to JFK, maybe 9 hours to JFK, and then another 4 or 5 hours to Heathrow. So
Can you not go the other way around through
Yeah,
Australia
so-
and
No,
Far East?
That's the
no,
same
no,
question. Is
no,
it closer
no.
to go the other way?
No, it's not. The other way around, you have to go like you'd have to go like to Japan to.
Yeah.
No.
No, it's not. I know.
No.
We're
That would be
totally-
really cool, actually, because from my experience of the flights from London to Tokyo, they're usually about a third full. Because essentially, what I heard was the way they make their money is cargo. So it doesn't really matter how many passengers they have. So if you wanted a really comfortable flight, because I've heard you, Todd, complaining about an airline before, saying how their seats were rock solid.
Yeah.
If you wanted a really comfortable flight, you can just kind of lie down on all four of the middle seats and.
It's interesting. The flying today, 6-7 years ago, the airplanes were never 100% full. But I don't think I have been in an aircraft, at least with United, in the past 3 or 4 years. Oh, New Year's Eve night. That night I flew the red eye to Vegas. That airplane was half full. But other than that, it's packed to the rim. Every flight is full. So it just in here I'm 5 hours from anything.
Hey, Mike, I was just thinking, Spreaker is your lead sponsor
Yeah.
for the event. I should be able to justify coming out, right?
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Yeah, we can get you in. On behalf of Spreaker, you should definitely come.
Yeah, well, I'll ask and see if I can.
Just tell the boss, hey, I need an airline ticket and everything else that goes along with it, and he's going to say, well, I can just come from Germany cheaper.
Exactly.
Come from Berlin cheaper.
Well, he's actually coming out to Podcast Movement, so actually it's the first time I'm going to actually meet Francesco. So
Well, that's
it'll
cool.
be great. Yeah,
We'll have to have some cocktails together.
yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And he's been on the New Media Europe show as well, but it's not the New Media Europe, the New Media show. I'm getting confused.
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
He's
He's
been
been
on the
a
show.
couple times.
Yeah, I think he's been on a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I mean, you guys should definitely come. The invitation is there, and if you can make it happen, maybe, I don't know, Todd, whether you can get Blueberry to kind of sponsor a business upgrade for you with British Airways. You can have one of those lie-down beds.
Yeah, I'm sure that will go over like a fart in church. Yeah. Yeah.
Worth your while.
Yeah. Blueberry Rob always flies coach. We don't fly first class. So we're not like Spreaker. We're not rich like them. So we're
Oh, geez.
yeah.
Okay, there we go.
There's
We-
always
we
controversy on this show.
We don't have VC money to burn. We don't have the investors' cash to just flush down the toilet. So
Oh, is that what we're doing?
it's really that's and not to dig on Rob. I just had to tease him, but
I know.
it is amazing that the cost of airline tickets these days they're really not that bad. If you think about it, I could probably get tickets to UK just about the same, probably almost the same cost as like a first class ticket all the way to New York. It would be a coach ticket would cost me the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Probably a couple $1,000s to get a round trip ticket to the UK from Hawaii, and you can get much cheaper if you're closer to the East Coast. You get.
Or you could take the Queen Elizabeth II from New York to Southampton, and then as we come over from the Isle of Wight, we can pick you up and take you up to Manchester.
Yeah, no thanks. No boats for me. I did 24 years in the Navy and 25 years in the Navy and stayed off boats. So no. No
Well,
boats.
that's right, Todd. You were up in the air, not
Yeah,
in boats, weren't you?
I waved at them and drank beer in the evenings while they were, drinking coffee. So
They need to build a highway. I mean, they keep building underground cables for the internet, under the oceans. So why can't they figure out how to do something like that?
yeah, my
Well, I
late.
think what they're putting those cables, they're actually burying them in
They are.
the bottom of the ocean, so terrorists don't cut the lines, right?
Well,
They
there's
keep getting broken by anchors, don't they?
there's
So-
another
Oh,
reason.
anchors, is that it? Oh, okay.
And
I thought it was
terrorists, maybe, too.
terrorists cutting the fiber lines.
No, it's actually another reason, and most people will laugh. But in the early days, they just laid them. They didn't bury them.
Yeah.
And what they found was certain sharks would bite cables. And then, of course, issues with the damage from anchors or anything, like that. But now they bury them. It's pretty interesting how they trench them in. When I was living in Guam long time ago, I was there when they brought the fiber into Guam. Actually, was there when they beached it, and got to see that whole process. But
You can't talk about it.
no, this was something. I was drinking beer one night, and some guy was in the bar, and we're talking, and he says, "Yeah, we're bringing fiber in tomorrow." And I'm like, "Can I come on down?" He says, "Yeah." I'm geeked out. Went down and watched and brought the fiber in. It was not really that exciting, but.
I would imagine not.
It's like bringing a cable ashore,
Yeah, exactly. It was like a trench and a cable at the bottom of it, right? Yeah.
But the way they did it from Hawaii to Guam, there's Marianas Trenches in between us, and they actually put the cable on the mountain ridge.
Oh. Okay.
So the cable is actually on top of the mountains that are, between here and Hawaii. I mean, between
There's
here
a
and Guam.
loose new media connection to that story. It's
Yeah,
fiber,
loose.
right?
I believe there's about 9 cables that come from New York into the UK off the coast of Cornwall. But I think there's one primary cable, and I think if that went down, we'd all be down to like 1 megabit a second, so I wouldn't be able to speak to you.
Yeah, and there's a map somewhere that shows all those fiber optic cables. They're putting them in all the time.
It's fascinating, yeah.
Yeah, it's especially how they repair them. It takes 3 ships to repair them. They basically take 2 ships miles apart and lift the cables up. It's so they don't bust it. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Did you guys hear the article that was put out by I think it's the CNBC folks that was saying that the Internet of Things is going to be a $1.7 trillion market.
The Internet of Things. So what does that mean, Rob?
Well, it means that more and more devices, appliances, things in our lives are going to have an internet connection. More and more in communicate and have like software updates and stuff like that. So our lives are getting much more connected to the network. I mean, locally and in our lives. And if you think about it, in our homes, I mean, how many devices do we have that connect to the internet now? That's just going to exponentially grow to your refrigerator, your dishwasher, your microwave, every little thing is going to have an internet connection that you can control it. And it's going to save power too, to some extent, because you can turn it off and turn it on, maybe via an app. But even front doors, front door locks are now could be connected to the internet. Those kind of things.
That's the big secret weapon with Windows 10. Most people don't know this, but part of the reason Windows 10 is being given away is baked into that is really all the home automation stuff. Yeah, all the hooks.
Yep.
So there's already TVs and washing machines and stuff that already have. They're just laying dormant, waiting for this software to be able to talk to it. And I think people are going to be blown away when Windows 10 comes out because stuff that they haven't been able to talk to up to this point, all of a sudden, is going to be interconnected.
Yeah, and I think it's a big development for new media too. I mean, being able to use like maybe a phone as your computer, right? That's your work computer. You bring it in and you dock it, and it becomes your big screen experience. The days of carrying, having a desktop and having even a tablet maybe going away to some extent.
I think that's wishful thinking.
I don't know. I mean, a tablet. I mean, if you think about what's happening with tablets,
right.
They are kind of fading. It's not like this growth curve. I mean, everybody has them now.
I don't think from a business point they will go away, but maybe from if a person.
Well, it's not going to go away. It's just not going to be as big as everybody thought it was going to be. 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, I think time will tell. We'll see.
Yeah,
I think people like their computers.
Oh no, I'm not saying that. That's I don't know that they like desktop computers.
Well,
I think that's the key difference, right?
Yeah, they're selling a lot of them. Apple is, especially. Yeah. Anyway, we've completely digressed here. See, I want to talk about So you're going to do 2 tracks at the event, and So what are you gonna? It's a full 2-day event. So then you're probably talking about having 6 to like 25 tracks or 24 tracks or something like that. Or you have any
Yeah,
idea what your
exactly.
track count's going to be
Yeah.
at this point?
I believe we're looking at around 24, and I think we've got about half of that announced right now, certainly from a speaker point of view. And Isabella is rifling through more speakers as of week commencing this week coming up. So I reckon we're going to have lots of new announcements coming up towards the end of next week and throughout the month of June. So yeah, about 24 in total. And like you say, it's a 2-day event, so I think people will be arriving on the Friday night. That's the kind of night when I think there'll be a lot going on. People might be arranging their own things. Saturday night is the party night in the UK Podcasters Awards. And then Sunday, it all kind of rounds off around 4 o'clock. But then again, we're encouraging people to hang around the Sunday into Monday and kind of network more. Because, I mean, that's one of the things we're really keen on is the networking and the networking space in between the tracks and the opportunities to do that. We were very deliberate in choosing the venue as well, making sure it's a hotel.
Yep.
And it's not just, we were thinking, because what I really liked about Vegas when we went out there was in New Media Expo, everything is just in the same place. And it's like, you get to really connect with people. All the parties happen in similar places. And we didn't really have anywhere like Las Vegas in the UK. So the closest we got to it was Manchester. And in the Midland Hotel, they have themed restaurants and bar areas and just kind of, it's very social. I mean, you literally can't go anywhere in the hotel without finding some kind of bar or restaurant. There's also a great hallway that leads in, which is going to be fantastic for exhibitors because literally that's where they're going to be. I heard you talking to Dan Franks last week all about the exhibitor doors and the dreaded making eye contact with the salespeople. But, we're
No. Information givers, not salespeople.
That's right.
But it's all going to be very casual. And, again, we're deliberately, trying to make sure that we have people there that are going to bring, value to people in the new media space. But it will be very integrated into the hotel. We're kind of almost, I'd like to think, taking over the hotel for the weekend. So, anyone who's staying there who's not aware,
They're going to
in for
know.
a bit of a treat.
And I think, it looks like you guys also kind of adopted some of the things Podcast Movement folks have been having some meetups going around, having some, some evening sessions or something where you're able to kind of get the local folks together and at the same time promote the event, which is smart.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I mean, in the UK, it's as you know, it's nowhere near as big in the US. So I mean, you can go to all kinds of major US cities and have fantastic meetups.
Right.
I mean, here we're getting to the stage now where we can announce a London meetup and we can hit the venue capacity within 24 hours. I mean, there are enough people in London interested in podcasting and new media that we can fill it. Other places, it's getting there. Some places are more surprising than others. Like I mentioned earlier, the Isle of Wight is nearly at full capacity now, which is strange. We're still working. We're doing a pre-launch party in Manchester. And we're having to work harder on filling that one than we are the Isle of Wight. So it's kind of you just don't know where these characters are hanging out in the UK or Europe. So
Well, I definitely will have to put this on my list for next year. I know I can't come this year, but it's I know you guys are going to have a great event. It's exciting and nice to see that you've got some people coming in too to speak, and hopefully as the community matures over there and as you guys grow, you're going to find that you're going to break out some people there that hopefully can come in and keynote for you as well. I think it's always good to have local success stories. I think what that will help you do is, okay, these guys are from the U.S., they're successful, but how does that apply here? I think it's important that you guys find, as shows grow and get successful, that you really do your best to have them share their success stories, because, again, it's something that the local community can relate with. I think on a bigger basis. And you guys face different issues too, from sponsorships. Oftentimes I'll get a sponsor that says U.S. only, and so a show in the UK, even though they may have a big U.S. audience, the advertiser won't advertise in them because their show is originally based in the UK, and the media buyer can't get through his head that if it's 70% of the audience is the U.S., So you guys have some unique challenges there on your own. Also, some unique opportunities too. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, like you say, with the kind of almost geo-locking of sponsorship, that's an interesting one. But as you guys know, there are some fantastic companies in Europe, particularly in Berlin.
right.
I mean, Isabella and I are a big fan of Berlin because there's so much going on over there, but also London as well. And so, I mean, we just got to keep our eyes on that. We are fortunate, as you mentioned, to have some really good sponsors like Spreaker, like Adobe. We've had in the past Skype. So we've had, big companies are interested in this event and what's going on. It's just, it's building it and it's interesting. It's good fun.
Making people aware that it exists, and as you build your speaker base, and year over year, it just gets better and better.
Well, and one thing that's interesting about and something that's not talked about very much about the scene that's going on in Berlin is the reason a lot of those companies are in Berlin is because it's cheap. They can hire Russian and Yugoslavian programmers. That's a big part of the reason that it's kind of like China in an instance that it's the salary base is much, much lower, and they can get a lot more help for their dollar spent. So
Totally, and the food and the beer is also cheap in Berlin.
That's true.
We had dinner for
too.
6 full pizzas and beer, and the bill, I've just converted it, came to €60, which is $66 for 6 people. Full pizza and beer. I mean, that would be a dinner for 1 or 2 in America, would it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
So it is cheap. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder, how does the salaries compare there, though? It's got to be much, much lower than too.
I have no idea on that.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah, I don't either. I have no idea. It's been a few years since I've been to Europe, so it's been. I think I was back there last in, was it 2006, something like that, 2007. Last time I was in Europe.
I can tell you exactly when it was for me, June 13th of 2004. I came through after I'd gotten hurt in Oman, and came through Heathrow with a broken back. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah. Heathrow sucks, too. I don't like that airport.
It's like a grand version of the London Underground. So if you've ever seen London Underground, it's like a big London Underground station on a colossal scale.
Heathrow and Newark are the 2 airports I absolutely do not want. It's just like I try to avoid them, but I shouldn't dog on Heathrow that much. But it's what it is. It was built a long time ago, and they need more space, and they don't have space. They're encroached. They can't. So
But you haven't tried the legendary Terminal 5 yet.
Is that new, or is that what is?
Yeah, I think it's a
When
new
it
one, right?
launched now.
Huh?
Let's have a look. Terminal 5 launch. When was that? It was. Oh my goodness! Yeah, it was back in 2008. Now, famously, it went very wrong though. They lost loads of luggage, and
That's
it's
right.
a very British launch, but, it's actually it's a great terminal, and actually we just flew out of there just the other week when we went to Berlin, and it's all modern and all nice in there. And I have to say, actually, if we weren't traveling with our infant, I could have actually checked into the flight on my phone using Passbook. And again, it's infants at this stage that hold you up because you have to go through the process and they need to see you.
Right.
But otherwise, we could have gone through the biometric gates on the way out. So, yeah.
Huh. Well, here you have to go through the famous TSA. They can't find 95% of the stuff that goes through their security system. But
Hey, Todd, did you hear that Shaquille O'Neal has a podcast now?
I did. I saw something about that on one of the podcasting forums. Any idea what the response to his show's been?
I listened to it yesterday. It was actually pretty good. I thought he did a good job.
I hear he's got a producer and everything.
Oh
so,
yeah. Well, it's a Podcast One deal. So, Podcast One produces a show with Shaq's wife.
Oh.
Prior, so there's a connection there. Norm and the LA Lakers. So
Right.
a pretty strong connection there. But yeah, I thought Shaq did a pretty good job with his first episode.
So what was the topic?
Oh, he was just talking about just stuff. His life in the NBA and what's going on with LeBron, and LeBron, and he was talking about Larry Bird and all sorts of stuff. So I think it'll be an interesting show. He has like a kind of a radio guy in there / comedian that's kind of supporting him a little bit. Kind of doing some in and outs of the segments and things like that, trying to support him. And so he has somebody that he can kind of riff off of.
Right.
But it seems the show seems to work pretty well. I think it'll be okay. Plus, Stephen Colbert is doing a podcast.
Wow.
With this new gig as being the host of the Tonight Show.
Has that started? Did he actually? They're in transition, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. But he's launched his podcast, and it's him doing it. So it's not like like Conan had this Coco podcast that was done by his show producers. This is actually Stephen Colbert doing it. So
I think it's going to be interesting how he does on the night show, because he's going from a kind of over-the-top genre to a more serious. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting transition to see how he does there, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, his old show was more of a parody. On being a conservative.
Right.
Now he's got to be more straight. He's got to be a straight comedian, not play some
right.
pseudo
some
character.
Shtick,
yeah, to make fun at the other side. So I think but you're right. I mean, he's going to have to change his persona, because he's definitely had a image out there.
Is his new podcast, is it trying to change that image already?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's the impression is that he's going to go back to I mean, he's always been a comedian,
right?
So I think he's just going to go back to his roots, and be that kind of riffing comedian, and so it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think he's actually started yet.
No, I think there's a transition time. I'm sure they're building a new studio, and
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think I saw where they were tearing out all of the David Letterman stuff.
Yeah, and just like throwing it in the trash. People were outraged.
I guess his desk and a couple other things are going to the Smithsonian, I guess.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, I mean, if you think about it,
yeah.
There's a big chunk of history there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever attended a live show there?
I've never.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. A few years back. So I've been in the audience in there before.
And it's really a much smaller studio than what it looks like on TV, too, isn't it?
I mean, I know it holds probably 200 plus people, 200 or 300 people. So it's not that small.
Yeah.
I mean, actually,
it is a theater. It's a Ed Sullivan Theater, or Ed Sullivan Dave Letterman Theater now.
Yeah, I've been to a live taping of The Daily Show, but before I sat right behind the camera that films him. Now that is a small audience. You're only looking at maybe 50, 60 people in there. So, but anyway, we're completely off topic.
Yeah,
I always wanted to watch Craig Ferguson do the Late Late Show in Los Angeles. He's unfortunately retired. You guys watch Craig Ferguson?
Well, he's actually doing a game show now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's like this late night game show thing that's being produced by Courtney Cox.
Wow.
So it's where you bring in couples in there, and they banter back and forth. I mean, it's just it's so Craig Ferguson. I mean, he's doing the whole snarky thing like he usually does.
How's James Corden going down over there? Is he settling in well to the Late Late Show?
Yeah, I think he's doing pretty well. I don't know, Todd. Have you ever watched him before?
No, that's
okay.
Generally,
you have to be up really late, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the late show. Yeah, but it's another LA-based talk show. I don't know that he's doing any podcasting though, but I'm just seeing so many more. I mean, there's just a huge explosion in content that's coming into the podcasting space right now. It's just unbelievable, and I think it's only going to accelerate. I think from what I'm hearing down in Hollywood, it's just like everybody's just like spun up like crazy around podcasting down there. There's going to be this huge influx of storytelling podcasts. That's just I guess there's just a lot of scripts that never get made into movies,
Right.
and so
Oh,
there's
that's
going to be
curious.
a resurgence or a upswelling of a lot of those stories being produced into audio programs.
So there is a couple of news items I want to cover. Gimlet Media is hiring, and they got two different positions being offered. One is labeled as a development producer, and the other is simply listed as host. Gimlet
Yep.
Media seeks a development producer to pilot and launch new podcasts, a unique opportunity to develop and produce exciting new audio programming, and the ideal candidate will be creative, be able to take a concept from idea to fully formed podcast. The development producer will take on multiple roles. In the production process, they'll bring ideas, enthusiasm to the table, blah, 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 work on
Yep.
multiple projects. And then the host position is they seek a new podcast host. The show will take a fresh look at big news stories from the past we thought we knew. It will be produced in collaboration with existing media organization. And the ideal host will have strong writing and interviewing skills. So that's one thing that's going on. Vimeo Media is launching a subscription service. So that's kind of an interesting move here.
Yeah, it is. It's actually really, really interesting as you think about what's happening with video going all digital now, and how like Showtime and HBO are going direct now. I mean, you start
Yep.
thinking about what could be done now once that monopoly or that stranglehold on content with the cable networks.
Yep.
Once that really fully breaks, I think we can really see a lot of other interesting things start to happen.
So Vimeo's doing a 90-10 split, that's incredible. But you have to have their 199-year pro account to do that.
Yeah, it's $199 a year.
Yeah, to have their Vimeo Pro is the service. So those are two stories that were trending on podcasternews.com the past week.
The other story that came out too is the two former guys from Westwood One and Dial Global have formed a new company called Digital. I can't even say it. Digital.
So two guys from where? Westwood One?
Well, Dial Global
Yeah.
and in Westwood One, two
That's
guys.
Norm's old company.
Old company have partnered with a VC company to create a whole new business entity that's going to focus on producing spoken word audio content, and that company was merged with Vox Media,
Oh.
which
Oh.
produces
Oh.
The Verge and other properties. I can't remember the other ones.
Well, Vox Media also bought RE Code.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was going to go next. So RE Code is going to produce a bunch of new podcasts with Kara Swisher and that whole crew.
Oh,
So,
Leo's going to have some competition here.
yeah. So
Wow.
there's going to be
Wow.
a whole new thing that's starting up here. It's all on the East Coast.
Oh, that's curious.
Yeah. So they've hired a chief content officer, Chris Corcoran, who was the former executive VP of content at Dial Global and Westwood One. So I mean, it's a lot of radio guys.
Yeah.
Essentially, is what's happening here. But they're seeing what Norma's been doing at Podcast One and making this shift, and I think that Kara Swisher and Walt Mossberg's kind of company there, the RE Code, was probably struggling a little bit on their own. So it sounded like they needed to merge with a bigger entity, a bigger media.
Well, Vox Media, my God, they came on the scene and just
Sucked up
oh,
a lot.
yeah. And
the
then,
Verge has really turned into a huge media property.
but I also heard that one of the properties went. I talked about it in my show. They actually voted to bring in a union shop. Who was that? Let me look. Oh man, I'll find it here in a second. but I was surprised. It's the first blogging true blog. Gawker went union. So this is the first real kind of like blogging platform that is went union. So that's an interesting move. In my opinion, that's heading the wrong direction. But it's kind of curious that they voted to bring in the Writers Guild.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I don't know if we talked a lot about the whole Spotify announcement.
We've talked a
Here
little
on the
bit,
show?
yeah. We've talked to some on the
Did we?
show.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Yeah, it's interesting what's happening there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have any update on what's happening around Spotify opening it up to more content providers.
I'll let Spotify discuss that. I'm probably not at liberty to say at this point.
Yeah.
But I think there should be reason for concern.
Yeah. Well, I think as you look at, Deezer is probably the best model of how this integration should go. Taking that whole Stitcher catalog and moving it over, but it sounds like Spotify and I could see Pandora doing this too, of just being really kind of selective on who they add to their catalog.
I think we'll know more this summer, and that's basically the. And I've asked them to come out with a statement. I've suggested to them come out with a statement, and we've had a dozen or two emails back and forth. So I think the just tell podcasters be patient. There is going to be options for you to get into their platform. You're not going to have to be locked to another platform to get into their platform, as it's being, how should we say this, implied right now. So just podcasters need to be a little bit patient.
Mm-hmm.
It's best to own your listing versus someone else owning their listing.
Yeah. And I think that the other big thing that's happening, and we may have mentioned this in the past too, about Audible getting back into podcasting too.
And I think we're going to find out more about that at Podcast Movement, because I guess they're coming.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And for many in the space, they will think this is something new for Audible, but it's not really. It's their second run at it.
But it's in the back of my head, and I've said this on the show before. There's all these new companies. They're going to have to create new content because there's not that much big content out there.
Yeah.
Big show content.
And I think that's the challenge that the industry. I mean, Todd you and I have talked about this before.
Yeah.
It's growing the audience for this medium is important.
That's right.
Growing
the audience right now is more important than, in my opinion, than growing more shows.
Well, hopefully, growing more shows will inspire that, right? But they need to be shows that will be appealing to pull new people into the medium.
Yeah. So I think the folks that are going to be creating content, are going to have their hands full. It's not easy.
No, it's not.
It's not easy, and you got to have big names to build shows. And I think that's what I hope you guys in the UK are looking at is. Your local celebrities and your local folks that are well known, the big names, those are the folks that hopefully will be launching podcasts.
Yeah. Well, there's a very famous guy. I don't know if you guys have heard of him out there. You probably have, actually. Russell Brand.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Did a deal with Audio Boo not so long ago, actually, and he's got a podcast going. So that's an interesting move. And I think you're right. There are a lot of people on the radio here in the UK, big celebrities that could be doing solo podcasts. So, that's going to be interesting to watch. Of course, there's Ricky Gervais and Stephen Fry, but, they've been kicking around for a while, haven't they, doing that? So
is the radio market, though, in Europe being disrupted like it is here in the US? Or, here it's all about consolidation. It's about, the station that's playing something in Atlanta is playing the same exact thing in, in a little small town in America.
We kind of got that after you. I think you invented that. Clear Channel invented that model in the US, and we just nicely transplanted it into the UK.
Yeah.
So, we've
Thank you. Right. Yeah.
I could ramble on about radio for hours, so don't start me. But we've got a network called Heart. Well, essentially, what are they called now? I think they're Global Radio, and they have stations such as Heart, which is a brand. And yeah, you're right. What is playing in Southampton is also playing in Dundee in Scotland and in Cardiff in Wales. Whereas we used to have lots of local stations, and of course those, in my opinion, were the glory days of radio. But I'm just excited to be in the podcasting space now, because I think that's where it's at. There's still a place for radio, but no, I'm sure I had a chat with Rob Greenlee about this before, when you said something about music radio and the days being a little bit numbered. Would you still stand by that statement?
Music radio? Days being numbered? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, essentially music-led radio as opposed to speech-based radio. Local music radio stations, the days being, the future being very questionable for those kind of radio models or radio stations.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I think as things go more digital, people are going to, have their own personalized stations that, playlists. So I think it's just going to, eventually make that model kind of not work anymore too well. But it's going to be a couple of years out before I think we see that crossover happen for radio just in general. I'm not sure what the role that the radio dial plays in the future in reality. Is it just going to be for local programming, or I know a lot of the radio folks are really freaked out. I don't know if you guys knew about a live streaming conference that went on this past couple of days in LA called HiVio.
Yes, Mark Ramsey. Yeah,
exactly. He was. I was part of his session last year. I didn't go down there this year, but he had some great folks on talking about creating content and distribution and monetization, and it was really, really an insightful kind of pathway that he presented there. And I think he's going to be putting out sections of that over the next couple months with each of the speakers that he had. But it was really interesting. It's a live 2-day event that was all done in a fairly small venue at a comedy club in LA, and had people come in from, they had folks up there doing presentations from Spotify and Podcast One and big radio networks and things like that. So yeah, radio is definitely a little bit freaked out about on demand right now. They're having to really rethink things, but at the same time, they feel very strongly that they own a huge part of the world of audio listening, because still over 200 million people listen to radio every day. So they are still a huge presence in audio distribution and consumption today. The problem is that's slowly eroding, and they don't seem to be able to turn that around.
And I think, too, what you end up finding is that I think the traditional radio dial is numbered just like, we've launched Android TV is now up to 600, they're calling them channels. Yeah. And they're all digital channels. Roku's up to several thousand channels. It's a little bit different experience, and as they get that hashed out, the TV market thing's going to kind of start to be impacted more. I think it'll be less impacted than radio, but as cars get smarter, and the key again is if they turn on the radio, what turns on? Does it turn on to an FM station, or does it turn on to Pandora first?
Yeah,
what's
Spotify.
What comes up first, and what gets people's attention, and then of course everyone in the car may have their own device and plugged in their own way. In our car, the driver rules the knob or what's coming into the speakers in the vehicle.
Yeah, because it's very, very likely, and we're seeing the leading edge of it right now, that AM and FM radio is an app, just one of the apps on the dashboard, right? And it may be at the bottom of the list.
So time will tell. But anyway, we're here at the hour and a half mark.
We are.
So,
do you always stick to the hour and a half, or do you ever go for 3-hour marathons?
No. No.
Too big of a video file for Todd.
It's not so much a big video file. Who wants to watch us for 3 hours, you know?
I know, it's pretty.
We'd
it's
have
a
to-
pretty scary prospect.
We'd
isn't
have
it?
to have 6 guests to do 3 hours, I think.
Well, you know, Leo regularly does like 2.5-hour Windows weeklies, and
But he's got
It's
four.
just-
He's got 4 people, and he's got multiple guests, and he's changing topics every 2 minutes.
I know. But
You
it's
know.
amazing how some people in this space just go on. And I mean, there's podcasts out there that are 4 or 5 hours long.
Yeah, Adam Curry's about 2.5, 2 hour
Yeah.
40, and he got a huge audience. So,
Yeah.
that's what I'm curious. I wonder if Adam's going to come to Podcast Movement. I haven't heard whether or not he's actually coming.
I don't know either, but
Yeah.
I would think you would want to.
I would hope so too. Anyway, they say they've got some big announcements on Wednesday, the 10th. So we'll see what they announce as well. And as you guys make your announcements over there in Europe, make sure you let us know so we'll share it with the audience too. And we'll look.
That'd be awesome.
And if people want to get on an airplane and go across the pond, or if you're listening to the show in the UK, you need to go over to the New Media Europe.com website, and you need to sign up. You need to go to this event. Support your local podcasters there, and support the team that's bringing this venue to you. If nothing else, you're going to make friends and relationships and connections that'll will pay back many dividends, and hopefully
Yeah.
you guys
Get a great trip to London, Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully you guys attract, some folks in the industry there. Maybe it attracts some local venture capitalist folks, and maybe, I think that, if you,
Spark some.
Yeah.
coming in looking for content, because everyone's looking for content. I get that call 5 times a week, and that's why I always giggle when these new companies are starting, and they have no idea how hard it is to find new content. So, got to create it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting place, and like you say, just the idea of coming into Europe, into London, into Manchester. I mean, one of our ideas for the future, maybe 5 years down the line, and depending on how it goes with will people be willing to travel outside of the UK, we would consider taking this event across Europe. So that's not something we've said before, but I'm saying it on the New Media Show exclusively.
It makes sense that you would do that. It seems like a normal progression for you. And
Absolutely.
The key is to get if you can do it and get enough bodies in the seats, to cover the bill and hopefully pay for your time. I think it's good.
So
That'd be
so
very
if
nice.
you were to
It's
hold
a
it in
year-round
another
gig.
country, what country would it be?
Well, I don't know. In my mind, Barcelona was very much coming to my mind. Maybe for the first time outside the UK, and I'm talking 5 years down the line now. I think we have to establish it in the UK first.
Sure.
But Barcelona is it the mobile conference or a huge conference?
Yeah,
Mark Zuckerberg
yeah, I've
has
been there
spoken
before. To that concert, that conference.
Yeah.
It is huge. It's an amazing event.
Yeah, so I think
3GSM, I
Barcelona
think
would
is
be
what it's called, or they may have renamed it to something else now, but huge event.
Yeah. So I mean Barcelona or I think Berlin would be good places to aim for. As a cold Brit, I'm kind of tempted to look towards Greece or south of Italy, maybe. So, but I mean that's the beauty of it. If people will come, if we can, like you say, if we can get bodies in seats, and I think the way to test the water over the next 5 years to decade timescale is by doing meetups across Europe and experimenting with that as the community grows. So it's an exciting time, and we're so excited about it because we're doing something that we genuinely love doing. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with the first event, and keep us advised on what's going on. And my advice for you on the awards is, no matter what you do, people are going to bitch. So, people are going to complain. There's no perfect way to do it, and that's the extent of the advice I'm going to give on that.
That's not much advice.
Well, it's true. You have to come up with your, There's no way to make people happy in any award system. It's impossible.
What
So,
about making it a complete democracy, having no control and just, almost like communism for awards?
well, then
Is that a terrible idea?
then everyone gets one.
Everyone has an equally good podcast.
It's just like at soccer stuff these days. Everyone gets a trophy, So maybe that's the key. And we're all everyone thinks their show's the best anyway, right?
Yeah.
Of course. That is true.
Well, thank you for coming on. We definitely appreciate it. Again, we won't be with you next Saturday. I apologize. That's my fault. But Rob, anybody on tap for the week we get back?
Oh yeah, I've got lots of folks that I think will join. I was going to bring on hopefully the fellow that runs podcasting at the NPR. I was hoping to get him on,
cool.
And if I can get on the guy that runs podcasting for PRI. So yeah, I've been reaching out to a lot of folks here recently, and getting them queued up to come on. I'm trying to go into areas that we typically don't hear from, right?
Good.
I'm trying to bring in people it'd be great to bring on somebody from Spotify and Deezer and all those guys, and I'm going to try. I talked to Noah Shannock just the other day, and so I guess he still has some contacts at Deezer. He's still helping him out a little bit, so he was willing to give me some some contacts inside the company. I guess they don't really have anybody right now that's kind of leading on the podcasting side right now from a community perspective. So that was an unfortunate thing to hear.
Just as a local thing, if you're in Hawaii, I'm having an event here at the studio on the 27th of June. It's in the afternoon, 1 to 4. It's part of the Podcast Hawaii group. Going to bring people into the studio, and we're going to have, we call Talk Story here. We're going to do about 3 hours of talk story and sharing. So if you're in the Hawaii area, you want information on that, definitely email me. So you can.
How big is podcasting in Hawaii?
It used to be bigger, but there's probably 20 to 30 shows here that I know of.
Todd, I think that you should create a podcasting event in Hawaii. I think you get a lot of people just show up so they can go to Hawaii. It's an excuse to go.
Well, I've thought about it, but where do I fix? I'm already got 20 hours of my 24-hour day booked.
Booked, right?
I've thought about having a weekend where people can come in, but I don't want to become a consultant. But if I was going to have people come in, it would have to be a paid event. I've thought about that in the past.
The meetups could be epic. You could have them on Waikiki Beach, or
we wouldn't get nothing done. That's the problem with Hawaii. It's too beautiful. Who wants to be in a room listening to some dude
a
talk?
hotel out on the North Shore.
Yeah, and we'd get less done.
What's the island with the active volcano? Don't
the big island. Here's that's why when we do our winter retreat for Raw Voice, it's why we go to Chicago in January, February, because if we came to Hawaii, we wouldn't work. The distraction of bikinis and young viral men running around the beach is quite a distraction to people. I'm just kidding. No, there's a lot to do here, just like Vegas. So. Lots to see. You're going to come this way. Yeah, maybe we'll do something. I just have to figure out where it fits and the added value. It's got to be something that people will want to come to, and it's something that would take me a while to put together. And then again, what would someone pay to come hear me talk about podcasting for a weekend? But
and you've got a very cool state flag there. I'm not just saying that because it's got the Union Jack in the corner, but it's lovely.
It is. A lot of history behind that. So
yeah,
I'll bet.
Okay, everyone. Again, thanks for coming out today. Todd or Rob at New Media Show. You can reach me at Geek News on Twitter. You can reach Rob at
Rob Greenlee on Twitter, and then or robgreenlee.com, or I'm working at Spreaker now at Spreaker.com.
And Mike, of course, they can reach you at Mike Russell. I guess someone got Mike Russell, so you used Mike Russell, yeah?
Yeah, I suddenly found that name was available everywhere, and there's tons of Mike Russells around the world. So yeah, I kind of iOS'd myself a little bit there.
That's it. I was going to say you're now Apple-ified.
Yeah, you're the iMic. I think there's a trademark on that, by the way. I got some devices over here.
Let's avoid that.
So everyone,
it's been great. Thanks, guys, for having me on the show. I've really appreciated it. Had a good time as well.
Have a good evening. Thank you so much. And everyone else, we'll see you next time on the New Media Show, and we'll share what happened in talking to Danica at MIS, and plus all the other stuff going on in podcasting. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye. trying to shut the stream off. Wrong button. Okay, YouTube. See you later.